The first sign of trouble wasn't the news alerts or the sirens or even the sudden increase in people coughing into their sleeves on the metro. It was the tissue aisle at Halpern's Grocery on East 47th and Vine. Overnight, it looked like it had been looted by a particularly polite mob. Empty shelves. A single crushed box of mentholated 3-ply sitting sideways near the floor, and a handwritten sign that read, "Limit 1 per customer." Orren Zale stood staring at it, holding a half-empty basket with canned soup and a cold pack of chicken thighs. He scratched his jaw, which had started growing stubble faster than usual lately, and turned to the employee restocking peanut butter. "Hey, what's with the tissues?" he asked. The kid shrugged without looking up. "Flu season, man. People lose their minds." Orren nodded slowly but didn't move. He wasn't sick, not really. Just a scratchy throat, a little fatigue, but nothing a weekend under a blanket wouldn't fix. Still, he'd learned to read patterns. People didn't clean out shelves unless something was really off. By the time he got home, his neighbor across the hall, Mrs. Denley, a retired schoolteacher with a fondness for floral robes and conspiracy theories, was taping plastic wrap over her doorframe. "They said it's airborne now," she whispered, squinting at him. "Not just the flu." "Who said that?" "The ones watching. You know, the ones upstairs." Orren politely nodded, unlocked his door, and stepped into his apartment. He sneezed twice before dropping the keys, kicked off his shoes, and collapsed onto the couch. The next morning, the sky had changed. Not the color exactly, but the feel of it dimmer, like someone had turned down the contrast on reality. Orren noticed it from his window as he stirred honey into a mug of tea. Then the low hum started. It was deep, rhythmic, and pulsing like a heartbeat coming through the floorboards. He stepped outside. Half the block was doing the same, heads tilted back, mouths slightly open. In the sky, a ship hovered. It wasn't flashy. No glowing rings or lasers. Just a long, dark shape like a sideways grain silo with lines of dim blue light running down its sides. It hovered above the city in silence, save for that hum vibrating through their bones. And then came the voice. "Civil alert. Planetary quarantine initiated. Biological outbreak detected." Orren's mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the sidewalk. Within hours, the entire city was under lockdown. Not because of government orders, but because the aliens who had descended in ships to every major population center had deployed what could only be described as containment domes. Transparent fields hummed into existence around urban areas. The news called them plasma shells. Social media called them sky coffins. And the aliens called the virus an outbreak. Not a virus. Not influenza. An outbreak. The first time Orren saw one of them up close was on day 2 of the lockdown. He was in the stairwell, trying to get to the roof to see if the dome had seams, when the door flew open and a creature stepped into the dim light. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, but thin as a scarecrow. Its skin was a matte gray-green, its limbs jointed in odd places, and its face was a smooth oval with a thin horizontal slit where a mouth might go. It pointed a small glowing orb at him. "Human, you will cease movement. Contagion levels must be assessed." Orren froze with both hands halfway to his face where he'd been about to rub his eyes. "Look, I'm not sick. I mean, I've got a cold, but not the kind that kills you or anything." The alien blinked literally. Its entire face pulsed with light. "You acknowledge infection?" "Yeah, I mean, it's February. Half the city's sneezing." It took a step closer. "This level of biohazard is consistent with Class 4 planetary pathogen outbreaks. We have initiated full quarantine procedures. No external contact until containment is verified." Wait, you think this is like a pandemic?" "It's just the flu. People stock up on tissues. It's a thing." The alien didn't move. "Tissue preparation is noted. Civilian response patterns are being logged. Further examination will be conducted." Then it turned and silently walked away down the stairwell. By day 5, things had taken on a strange rhythm. The plasma dome remained shimmering faintly in the sky. The aliens established a monitoring post in the public library. Every few blocks, one stood silently on a street corner, scanning people. Orren had started keeping a notebook. Not because he fancied himself a journalist, but because he needed to track what was happening. Fever rates, sightings, symptoms, alien movements. It helped him stay grounded. He looked out the window and saw people lining up at a mobile medical tent the aliens had erected in the park. He pulled on his jacket and headed out. The line moved slowly. A man ahead of him coughed into his elbow. A woman behind him sniffled. When Orren finally reached the front, the aliens scanned him with another glowing orb. Moderate fever. Elevated cytokine markers. Begin antiviral protocol. I don't need antivirals, Orren said. I just need orange juice and some sleep. The alien didn't respond. Another one stepped forward and handed him a packet of something that looked like blue gelatin in a resealable pouch. It will reduce internal inflammation. I'm not inflamed. You are. Internally. He took the pouch and stepped aside. The jelly tasted like burnt mint and regret. That night, his fever spiked. He woke soaked in sweat, his chest tight and his limbs like wet sandbags. He barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. The next morning, he was admitted to the library. Despite the name, it wasn't a library anymore. It had been converted into a field hospital by the aliens. Rows of humans lay in cots between bookshelves, each monitored by floating orbs that beeped gently. Orren groaned as he was helped onto a cot by someone in a white jumpsuit. Name? The man asked. Orren Zale. Symptoms? Fever, chills, nausea, fatigue. But I'm not dying. The man scribbled something on a clipboard. You're in observation for 72 hours. No contact with others. But everyone here's already sick. The man didn't respond. He moved on to the next cot. Later that day, an alien stopped by his bed. Your immune activity is anomalous. Thanks. I do my best. You are exhibiting resistance patterns inconsistent with planetary baseline. Orren blinked. I'm just getting over it. Isn't that how it works? The aliens seem to consider this. Your species exhibits unpredictable immunological resilience. It complicates containment. Maybe stop calling it an outbreak, then. We call it flu season. We buy tissues. We drink tea. We survive. There was silence. Then the alien turned and walked away. By day 3, Orren's fever broke. He was discharged with another pouch of blue jelly and a warning not to engage in strenuous activity. Outside, the city was changing. The aliens had started interviewing people. Not interrogations, more like surveys. He watched one such exchange near a bus stop. Describe your illness chronology, the alien said. The woman, bundled in a purple scarf, answered casually, started with a sore throat. Then I got chills. Slept it off. Did you seek medical intervention? No. Just took some day-night-quil and drank broth. The alien pulsed for a moment. Your species regards this pathogen as non-lethal? She shrugged. I've had worse. 17's flu was brutal. Had to cancel Christmas the year. Orren walked away, laughing under his breath. The aliens didn't understand. They treated every sneeze like a biohazard, every fever like a death sentence. But for humans, this was just winter. Still, it wasn't harmless. Some people did end up in critical care. Orren knew that. But the way the aliens reacted, locking down cities, sealing off the planet, was like watching someone use a flamethrower to kill a mosquito. And yet, he couldn't shake a strange feeling. That maybe, just maybe, they were seeing something humans weren't. On day 12, he found out what. He was walking down 9th Street when the alien ship above the dome powered up again. Light cascaded down from its belly and a new message blared out. Mutation detected. Pathogen variant unstable. Adjusting containment protocol. Orren stopped cold. He wasn't laughing anymore. By the time the lights on the ship changed from blue to amber, the air inside the dome had taken on a faint metallic tang, like the smell of a coin held too long in your mouth. Orren noticed it while standing in line at the converted pharmacy near Midtown, where the aliens had installed a cylindrical dispenser that spat out boxes labeled respiratory attenuation units. They looked like oversized nasal strips and stuck awkwardly to the bridge of the nose, vibrating every few seconds. I feel like I'm in a low-budget sci-fi remake of an allergy commercial, Orren muttered, watching the person ahead of him fumble with the adhesive. A long-limbed alien with a luminous chest panel turned its head toward him. Your respiratory signature is within acceptable thresholds. Humor remains a dominant behavioral trait. Yeah, it's a coping mechanism. We're big on those. The alien made a soft clicking sound which might have been acknowledgement or indigestion. It gestured for him to approach. You were previously hospitalized. Briefly. I'm fine now. Your prior response to the pathogen is being analyzed. We require additional sampling. He raised an eyebrow. You want more of my snot? Excretions from nasal and oral cavities remain the most efficient indicators of immunological adaptation. Sure. Just ask next time instead of treating me like a walking petri dish. He leaned forward as instructed, and a thin probe, warm and slightly damp, zipped into his nostril with startling precision. Sampling complete. Remain within observation range for 75 minutes. I was planning to pick up soup. Soup procurement will be delayed. Compliance is required. He took a seat on a plastic bench that had once belonged to a DMV, judging by the faded number stickers. Across from him, another human sat hunched over, clutching a thermal mug and wearing 3 scarves despite the unseasonably mild weather. Her eyes darted up. You too, she asked. Yeah. I'm a repeat offender. They scanned my sneeze at a crosswalk and flagged me for inconsistent trajectory. What does that even mean? No clue. I'm pretty sure they think mucus is sentient. She offered a weak laugh, then sipped from her mug. A few minutes later, the lights overhead dimmed briefly and a low vibration pulsed through the plastic tiles beneath their feet. People looked up. The aliens didn't react. A new alien entered, this one taller than the rest, with 4 iridescent nodules around its neck. It moved directly toward Orren. This human demonstrated an immunological anomaly. He is to be transferred. Transferred where? Orren stood, already regretting it as his knees protested. Secondary evaluation bay. You will board transport vessel 3. I just got over a cold. I'm not patient 0. The alien tilted its head. You are not, but you are statistically improbable. Is that supposed to be flattering? Without answering, it extended a limb toward a sliding panel that hissed open to reveal a narrow corridor with walls that shimmered like wet marble. Orren hesitated. Do I get to come back? The alien's nodules pulsed once. Return probability is undecided. Cool. Love ambiguity. He followed, the corridor swallowing him in silence. The transport vessel looked nothing like a ship. More like a cross between an MRI scanner and a subway car, with the unfortunate seating arrangement of neither. He was strapped upright into a pod, facing a translucent wall that projected a slow-moving spiral of light. What's this supposed to do? He asked to no one in particular. A voice answered, this one synthesized and slightly too cheerful. Visual pacification. Please refrain from struggling. Not struggling. Just curious. The wall blinked once, then went opaque. When it opened again, he was no longer inside the city dome. He was underground. The air was cooler, sterile. The room was white, but not painted white as in born that way. Seamless, textureless, clean in a way that felt almost aggressive. He was unstrapped and guided gently but with clear intent into an examination chamber. At least a dozen aliens were present. Most of them looked similar, but 2 wore what could only be described as layered cloaks made of woven light. Subject Zale, human male, age 34, one-intoned. Resilience profile inconsistent with environmental averages, said another. A third stepped forward, holding a small black cube. This contains a simulation of your immunological response. You will engage with it. Orren blinked. You want me to fight a virus cube. Engagement is metaphorical. Neural interface will interpret subconscious data. I have to fight it with my brain? Your metaphor is adequate. The cube was cold when placed in his hands. He felt a mild jolt, then a rush of images: school hallways, hospital waiting rooms, the sound of his father coughing in 2009, the smell of menthol and stale crackers. Then, nothing. When he opened his eyes, the cube was gone, and the aliens were quiet. You possess adaptive recall. Your immune memory is unusually diverse. I've had a lot of colds. Your body treats pathogens as training exercises. He shrugged. I guess that's one way to put it. The aliens moved to a side panel and began exchanging data in bursts of sound that resembled music played backwards at high speed. Orren waited. Finally, one turned back. Your species has encountered this pathogen or close variants repeatedly, yet it fails to achieve stable dominance. That's because it keeps mutating. We mutate with it. It's mutual irritation. Infection events should destabilize your population. Yet cultural behaviors compensate. Yeah, we've got streaming platforms and a deeply unhealthy tendency to ignore warning signs. There was a pause. Your humor continues to manifest under sterile analysis. It's a defense mechanism. You guys have force fields. We cope with sarcasm. Another alien approached with a thin metal rod and touched it lightly to his temple. You will sleep now. I'm not tired. You will adapt. He did. When he awoke, it was difficult to tell how much time had passed. The room was darker and only 2 aliens remained. One handed him a folded garment that resembled a hospital gown but shimmered faintly when he moved. Reintegration is authorized. Data collection complete. I'm going back? You will resume civilian interaction. Your presence provides ambient reassurance. Because I'm not dead? Because you were demonstrably functional. He got dressed, which took longer than it should have because the garment had no seams. Eventually, he was escorted back through another corridor and deposited near a service alley behind a bakery that had been closed since the dome went up. It was late. The kind of late where the streetlights had already given up trying to be helpful. He walked 2 blocks before seeing another human. The woman from the pharmacy sat on a bench near a shuttered kiosk, eating something from a paper bag. You made it back, she said. Apparently I'm functional. They took my neighbor yesterday. Said her cough was tonally inconsistent. She plays trombone. I think it skewed their readings. Orren sat down beside her. They scanned my immune memory. That sounds invasive. Honestly, I think they were impressed. Like we're cockroaches with sarcasm. She offered him the bag. Inside were 2 half-smashed pastries. I found these in a sealed bin behind the synagogue. Probably stale, maybe radioactive. He took one. Deliciously uncertain. Overhead, the dome flickered for a moment, then stabilized. A distant hum rose in pitch. Mutation detected. A voice boomed faintly. Variant unstable. Containment continues. Orren took a bite of the pastry. We're gonna need more tissues. The dome dissolved at 3:12 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, vanishing with an audible pop like a balloon giving up on its last breath. Orren had just been peeling the top off a yogurt cup with one hand and swatting a buzzing drone away with the other when the sky cleared. It was subtle, no dramatic music. No fanfare, just the sudden absence of the faint shimmer above the skyline and the steady, ambient hum that had become as natural as birdsong. He blinked at the open sky, spoon halfway to his mouth. Across the street, the woman from the pharmacy, her name was Laura. He'd finally asked, stood beside a stack of folding chairs she'd been organizing for a makeshift waiting area. She looked up, then down at her arms as if expecting some part of her to dissolve next. Is it gone? She asked. I think they turned it off. A squat alien with 3 limbs and a rotating iris rolled forward on a platform and extended a panel from its chest. A single line of text scrolled across. Containment concluded. Resilience confirmed. Vector instability neutralized. Laura tilted her head. Was that a thank you? No idea, Orren said. But I don't think they're coming back. By nightfall, the streets were crawling with people. Not mobs or parades, more like cautious wanderers sniffing the air, checking for traps. The news anchors, long replaced by AI-generated broadcasts during the dome period, came back to their desks looking disoriented and under-moisturized. Orren sat on the curb outside his building, sipping a can of flat ginger soda and watching a group of aliens dismantle the diagnostic kiosk with surgical efficiency. One of them paused, then approached him holding what looked like a clipboard made of fog. You were designated subject, Zale. Still am. You exhibited durable immunological behavior under multidimensional stressors. Thanks. I guess my immune system has trust issues. The alien's head swiveled. Your species adapts through inefficiency. You rarely eradicate threats. You normalize them. That's weirdly accurate. Another alien joined, this one with a lattice of organic tubing running along its arms. It wordlessly handed Orren a sealed container about the size of a lunchbox. What's this? Archival unit, said the first alien. Record of your biological response and behavioral anomalies. You want me to keep it? It is yours. No further analysis required. He opened the lid. Inside were 3 vials, each filled with translucent fluid of different hues and a folded slip of material that unfolded into a display. It showed a map of his body, lungs, sinuses, lymph nodes with glowing overlays like a heat map. This is me. Your immunological imprint. It will update as you encounter new variants. So you're leaving us with a souvenir? No. A tool. Laura wandered over, eyes on the container. They giving out party favors now? Apparently, I'm a walking medical exhibit. The alien turned toward her. Your species has an unusual threshold for what constitutes normalcy. During observation, you engaged in behaviors inconsistent with crisis states: baking, storytelling, recreational foraging. We call that coping. The alien paused. It is effective. Then, without ceremony, the 2 aliens turned and rejoined the dismantling crew. The fog clipboard evaporated. That night, the city exhaled. Cafes reopened with limited menus. Buses resumed their routes, though half the drivers wore repurposed medical masks with cartoon teeth drawn on them. A man with a cello played outside the old library, his case open, filled with single-use thermometers and throat lozenges instead of coins. Orren returned to his apartment, now covered in a thin film of dust and takeaway menus shoved under the door. He took a long shower, threw out everything in his fridge except the mustard, and sat down with the archival unit on the kitchen table. The display blinked to life. A message scrolled across the top. Monitoring ceased. Autonomy restored. Adapt onward. He tapped the corner. The screen shifted, showing a timeline of his immune responses over the last 2 weeks. Peaks and valleys like a chaotic skyline. He stared at the data with a strange sense of pride, like looking at a wall of trophies you didn't know you'd earned. The next morning, Laura knocked on his door holding a paper bag and a thermos. They reopened the bagel place, she said. They've got something called Quarantine Special. It's just a regular bagel with extra garlic. He stepped aside to let her in. Over breakfast, they watched another alien ship lift off from the skyline, silent and slow, like a whale returning to deeper waters. No announcements, no parting speeches, just departure. They never said what the mutation actually was, Laura said. I don't think they knew, or maybe they didn't care. We survived it. That's what mattered to them. She looked at the archival unit still open on the table. So what now? We just go back to work? Pretend this never happened. No, he said. We go forward. Same direction, just slightly more aware we're weird. That afternoon, the city council held a public debriefing in the middle of the old basketball court behind the high school. No microphones, no cameras, just folding chairs, a few coolers of bottled water, and the mayor still wearing mismatched shoes. Orren stood at the back, hands in his pockets, listening to people share what they'd learned, how the aliens had cataloged their habits, how some people had been tested for emotional stability through dreams, how one man had taught an alien to play checkers using cough drop wrappers and a pizza box. When it was his turn, he stepped forward, cleared his throat, and said, "We didn't win. There was no battle. We didn't outsmart anyone. We just did what we always do, got sick, got better, and complained about the taste of the medicine." There were a few chuckles. Someone clapped once, then stopped, unsure if it was appropriate. But they left, he continued. Not because we were immune. Not because we were prepared. But because they finally understood we don't stop for things like this. We adapt. We make jokes. We keep going. He stepped back into the crowd. Later that week, the archival unit dimmed for the last time, its display folding in on itself like a paper swan. Orren placed it on the shelf between a half-finished novel and a snow globe from his trip to Cleveland. He didn't expect to need it again. By the end of the month, the tissue aisle at Halpern's was fully restocked. No signs, no rationing, just rows of soft, scented boxes waiting patiently for the next round. Orren stood there one morning, basket in hand, staring at the choices. A man beside him coughed into his sleeve. Without looking up, Orren said, "Get the mentholated kind. Trust me." The man nodded and reached for the box. Orren smiled to himself, turned, and walked out into a sky that, for the first time in weeks, felt entirely ordinary.